September 9th, 2025, the clock reads 7:23 in the evening when a veteran Soviet-era bomber prepares for what could be its final mission. This Su-24M, 4 decades old and weathered by countless sorties, sits on the tarmac as ground technicians make their last-minute inspections. Hydraulic lifts hum beneath its wings while 2 colossal Storm Shadow cruise missiles, each a 1,300-kilogram instrument of precision devastation, are carefully secured to the aircraft's hardpoints. Nested within these weapons are Broach tandem warheads, each carrying 450 kilograms of high explosives specifically engineered to punch through reinforced concrete and collapse fortified structures from the inside out. The combined payload weighs 1,600 kilograms, a crushing burden for an aging airframe. As the bomber taxis toward the runway from its base with the 7th Tactical Aviation Brigade in Khmelnytsky Oblast, the crew conducts their final weapons lock verification. Green lights flash across the display. A silent exchange of nods. The technicians step back, their work complete. What lies ahead is nothing short of a suicide run disguised as a surgical strike. The destination sits roughly 850 kilometers away, deep inside Russian-controlled territory. On paper, the Storm Shadow's 250-kilometer operational range offers a comfortable safety margin. Launch from a distance, stay out of harm's way, let the missile do the work. But reality paints a far grimmer picture. To guarantee target destruction, these warheads must be released from approximately 15 kilometers out. That means penetrating one of the most heavily defended airspaces on Earth, flying straight into a web of advanced Russian radar systems and surface-to-air missile batteries that have been waiting for exactly this kind of intrusion. For the pilot strapped into that cockpit, this isn't just dangerous, it's borderline suicidal. Yet he thought less up anyway. The Su-24 screams down the runway and claws into the night sky, engines roaring, carrying its lethal cargo toward a target 35 minutes away. The stakes couldn't be higher. A single misstep, one moment of hesitation or mechanical failure, and the entire operation collapses. Because at this exact moment, hundreds of kilometers away, a massive Russian armored formation is mobilizing for what was meant to be a crushing offensive. Elements from Russia's 41st Combined Arms Army and the 20th Guards Motor Rifle Division are gathering their strength near Pokrovsk. Ukrainian pressure along the Pokrovsk-Dobropilya axis has created a dangerous salient, threatening to encircle 2 entire Russian regiments. The call for reinforcements echoed through military channels, and now the response is taking shape. Dozens of T-90 main battle tanks, BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicles, and self-propelled artillery pieces are being staged behind the lines. Fuel trucks and ammunition convoys idle nearby, waiting for the green light to surge forward. This counteroffensive was meant to shatter Ukrainian lines and relieve the trapped forces. It will never happen. The Russian High Command has just committed one of the gravest errors possible in modern warfare. They've become predictable. The day before, Ukraine's Kortitsia-M, ground-based electronic warfare and signals intelligence system detected something unusual: abnormal spikes in data traffic across specific radio frequencies known to be used by senior Russian officers. These commanders had grown comfortable, fallen into routines, relied on established communication protocols. They had no idea every word was being intercepted, analyzed, and cataloged. Ukrainian intelligence operators traced these signal patterns to 2 locations: the Topaz Radio Electronic Factory in the northern district of Donetsk and the sprawling Donetsk metallurgical plant in the city center. Immediately, shark reconnaissance drones were dispatched, long-endurance, high-altitude platforms equipped with powerful optical zoom cameras. From 15,000 feet, these drones watched and waited, logging every vehicle rotation, every security detail, every high-ranking officer entering and exiting the facilities. Hours of continuous observation confirmed what the signals intelligence had suggested. These 2 industrial sites weren't just factories, they were the nerve centers, the operational headquarters of the 41st Army and the 20th Division. And through the same surveillance network, Ukrainian forces had also identified the Russian mechanized buildup preparing to strike. But here's the critical insight that separates competent military planning from strategic brilliance. Ukraine didn't intend to bomb the tank columns. They wouldn't try to meet them head-on at the front lines either. Ukrainian forces lacked the time and resources for a defensive setup or a hasty ambush. The solution was far more audacious. Cut off the head and the body dies. Destroy both command centers simultaneously with a single, perfectly timed, edge strike, and the entire offensive evaporates before the first tank even rolls forward. That was the plan. That was why everything hinged on the Su-24 and its 2 Storm Shadow missiles reaching their targets. But Donetsk is no soft target. The city and its surrounding region are blanketed by overlapping layers of Russia's most sophisticated air defense systems. S-300 and S-400 batteries capable of engaging targets at extreme ranges with terrifying accuracy. Storm Shadow missiles cruise just below the speed of sound, flying between Mach 0.8 and 0.95. If launched from maximum safe distance, Russian radar operators would have roughly 15 minutes to detect, track, and intercept these relatively slow, stable projectiles. 15 minutes, an eternity in air defense warfare. The mission would fail before the missiles even reached the city limits. So the pilot made a different choice, one that straddled the razor-thin line between courage and madness. He would penetrate to within 15 kilometers of the targets, reducing the missile's flight time to under 60 seconds. Too fast for intercept, too close for second chances, and he would do it alone, without fighter escort, trusting nothing but his aircraft's low-altitude agility, its NATO integrated electronic countermeasures, and the carefully orchestrated chaos that Ukrainian forces were about to unleash across Donetsk's skies. The Su-24 disappears into the darkness seconds after takeoff. Immediately, the pilot pushes the control stick forward, forcing the aircraft into a steep descent toward the Earth. He levels off at barely 50 to 60 meters above the ground, low enough to nearly touch the treetops, low enough to skim beneath power lines that would kill him instantly if he miscalculated by even a fraction. This is what the Su-24 was built for. Its terrain-following radar, integrated into an airframe designed in the Soviet Union decades ago but modernized with digital mapping systems, allows the aircraft to become a ghost. It hugs the contours of the landscape, exploiting blind spots in Russian radar coverage, vanishing into the ground clutter that confuses enemy sensors. But the pilot knows that his survival doesn't rest solely on his flying skills or his aircraft's capabilities. This operation is a symphony, and he's just one instrument. Dozens of drones, multiple command centers, an entire electronic warfare network, all must perform flawlessly in perfect synchronization, or he dies. The overture has already begun. From scattered, concealed bases across Ukrainian-held territory, various drone platforms lift off like pieces of an orchestra to king their positions. Simultaneously, Ukraine launches several of its newly developed Peklo cruise missiles, jet-powered, fast-moving weapons with a singular purpose. These aren't decoys, they're the shock troops designed to arrive seconds before the main strike, to hit the same targets the Storm Shadows are programmed to destroy. 3 Peklo missiles scream toward Donetsk, 2 aimed at the 41st Army headquarters, 1 at the 20th Division command post. Their mission is to inflict initial damage, force personnel into shelters, create panic, and most critically pull Russian air defense attention toward themselves, buying precious seconds for the Su-24 pilot racing behind them. Accompanying the Peklo missiles is a swarm of 15 UJ-26 Beaver and Ram-2X kamikaze drones flying at medium altitude. Their job is simple but vital: saturate Russian radar screens with false contacts, overwhelm Panzer and Tor battery operators with targets, force split-second decisions under pressure. But 7 of those UJ-26 Beavers have a more specialized task. They're hunting for the power distribution nodes and backup UPS systems that keep radar control centers operational. The objective isn't a total blackout. That would be too obvious, too easy to compensate for. Instead, create brief, localized blind spots. Interruptions lasting only seconds, but timed perfectly to coincide with the Su-24's penetration. All of this, every drone, every missile, every electronic warfare pulse, is being coordinated in real time from an underground command bunker in Kiev. Operators stare at massive screens filled with moving icons. The Su-24, the kamikaze drones, the Peklo missiles, all advancing through threatening red circles that represent Russian radar coverage zones. The kamikaze packages reveal themselves deliberately, using erratic altitude changes and sudden course corrections to draw attention. Russian radar operators suddenly find themselves drowning in contacts, dozens of potential threats, electronic interference, false echoes, all appearing simultaneously. In the confusion, a Panzer battery operator struggles to achieve lock. A 20-second delay occurs as he switches frequency bands, trying to cut through the noise. On Russian consoles, it looks like a temporary glitch. In reality, it's choreographed chaos. Meanwhile, the 7 UJ-26 Beavers press forward at low altitude, invisible beneath the clutter. Minutes later, success. 2 kamikaze drones strike home, destroying 2 separate radar installations and a command and control vehicle. A gap tears open in the Russian defense network, a blind corridor lasting just over 1 minute. This is the moment the Su-24 pilot has been waiting for. He dives through the gap at full throttle, the aircraft shuddering under the strain, engines howling. But the danger is far from over. A Russian Beriev A-50 AWACS aircraft, orbiting at high altitude and scanning the battlefield with its powerful radar, detects the heat signature blooming from the Su-24's engines despite the momentary blind spot below. The data is instantly relayed to the nearest S-400 battery. A high-pitched, shrill alarm screams in the pilot's headset. Radar lock. Reflex takes over. He yanks back on the stick, pulling the aircraft into a near-vertical climb to bleed off speed, and simultaneously hammers the chaff and flare release button. A cloud of metallic particles and burning magnesium erupts from the aircraft's tail, creating a false thermal signature. The 48N6E missile homing in on him takes the bait, detonating several kilometers away in a massive fireball that lights up the night sky. The pilot doesn't pause to celebrate. He dives back to low altitude, heart pounding, hands steady, knowing the next few seconds will determine everything. Because the Peklo missiles are about to arrive. The trio of Peklos enters Donetsk from different vectors. A Tor battery detects and destroys one at 8 kilometers out. A Panzer system intercepts another at 12 kilometers. 2 brilliant explosions blossom in the sky above the city. But the third Peklo slips through every layer of defense and slams into the main communications tower atop the Topaz factory, where the 41st Army headquarters is located. The 50-kilogram warhead detonates, shattering the tower like glass. The headquarters loses its primary communication link with the outside world. Alarm sirens wail. Chaos erupts inside as commanders and staff scramble to understand what's happening. Russian air defense operators pivot their full attention toward this sudden, unexpected assault. And in that moment of distraction, the Storm Shadows make their move. The Su-24 pilot reaches the launch point. Overhead, a Shark drone transmits live video confirmation. Targets active, high-value personnel present in both buildings. A single encrypted word arrives from Kyiv. Fire. 2 Storm Shadow missiles smoothly detach from the aircraft's wings and begin their autonomous flight. The pilot doesn't wait to watch. He executes a violent turn, pushing the airframe to its structural limits and drops back to treetop level, racing away from the inferno he's just unleashed. 35 seconds later, the first Storm Shadow penetrates the 41st Army bunker beneath the Topaz factory. Guided by laser designation from the Shark drone, the missile plunges directly into the main ventilation shaft. Deep underground, dozens of meters below the surface, it detonates in the center of the command room where the general and his staff are located. The explosion's energy has nowhere to go. Trapped inside the underground shelter, the pressure wave rebounds off concrete walls, tearing apart everything in its path. Equipment disintegrates, human bodies are obliterated, plans, maps, computers, all reduced nearly to atoms. 43 seconds later, the second Storm Shadow reaches the 20th Division headquarters at the metallurgy plant. The Broach warhead performs exactly as designed. The leading charge punches through multiple layers of reinforced concrete, creating a clean entry hole. Milliseconds later, the 450-kilogram main warhead slides through that opening and detonates inside the heart of the building, right in the middle of the command center. The massive pressure wave rips through every floor from the inside out, finding no escape route. The building's steel skeleton holds for a fraction of a second, then surrenders. Unable to bear its own weight, the structure collapses inward in a roaring avalanche of fire, smoke, and pulverized concrete, burying everything and everyone inside. Russia's immediate response is predictable: denial, concealment, spin control. Military cordons formed by Spetsnaz and FSB units quickly surround both sites. All access roads are sealed. Throughout the night, debris removal operations proceed under floodlights and absolute secrecy. But the truth leaks out anyway, in the ambulance sirens that don't stop wailing until dawn, in the heavy machinery that works until morning, in the streets blocked off with military tape. The impact is catastrophic. These headquarters weren't just places where orders were issued. They were the operational brain of the entire front, centers where intelligence from across the battlefield was collected, analyzed, and used to direct artillery fire, air support, and logistics flows. When they were destroyed, the Army lost its ability to think. Field units can't contact their superiors, phones go silent, encrypted networks collapse. The Russian military reverts to a 20th century structure where orders are transmitted on paper, impossibly slow, grotesquely inefficient in the middle of the 21st century. Plans that should take hours now stretch into days. Modern artillery depends on rapid sensor-to-shooter timelines. The headquarters functioned as the processing centers that turned UAV feeds and forward observer reports into fire missions for artillery batteries. With those centers gone, thousands of Russian field guns on the battlefield are left blind and deaf. Artillery fire either stops completely or devolves into random, inaccurate harassment fire. The massive mechanized offensive being prepared required enormous fuel and ammunition flows. The centers managing that supply chain were the ones just destroyed. Without them, logistics convoys remain stuck in their depots, waiting for orders that never come. Hundreds of tanks and armored vehicles sit idle, useless metal monuments devoid of fuel and ammunition. The psychological impact is equally devastating. The destruction of two sites considered untouchable, the very heart of Russian operations in Donetsk, sends shockwaves through the entire force structure. Even rear echelon personnel no longer feel safe. Deep mistrust and paranoia infect the command hierarchy. Surviving Russian command elements fracture into smaller, dispersed units that constantly relocate. While this makes them harder to target, it permanently degrades their coordination and efficiency. Meetings at forward command posts become shorter, decisions are delayed, and most damaging of all, the question of how they were targeted sparks a vicious internal witch hunt. The FSB launches investigations suspecting infiltration or betrayal, further crushing morale and initiative among military personnel. This single operation doesn't just stop a Russian offensive, it creates a golden window for Ukraine to seize the initiative across the entire Donbass region. With the Russian front paralyzed and operating in a command vacuum, Ukraine launches its counteroffensive. Russian artillery and air defense coordination has broken down, giving Ukrainian drones, artillery, and even armored units unprecedented freedom of movement. Areas previously too dangerous due to Russian counterfire become hunting grounds for Ukrainian gunners. Russian units deprived of command guidance begin leaving gaps in their defensive lines. Ukrainian special forces and mobile assault groups infiltrate these gaps, raid rear areas, sever supply routes, and launch localized counterattacks. Progress that would have taken months now happens in days. Ukraine is no longer reacting to Russia's next move. Ukraine is dictating the pace, the location, the tempo of the war. The static trench warfare that has defined Donbass gains the potential to transform into dynamic maneuver warfare in Ukraine's favor. This story isn't just about burning buildings and casualties. It's about the dawn of a new era in warfare where technology, intelligence, and strategic audacity can overcome raw brute force. It's a reminder that wars are won not only on the front lines, but in the minds of those who plan them and in the courage of those who execute impossible missions. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and understand the real strategies, the human stories, and the deep analysis behind conflicts like this, make sure you subscribe to IntelX. Hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments below, and join a community that believes knowledge is power. War isn't just fought with weapons, it's fought with awareness. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.